So welcome to the today's talk on smart cities and 15-minute cities by Professor Dr. Beniamino Murgante. He's a professor of spatial planning at the School of Engineering of the University of Basilicata. And his collaborator, Alfonso Annunziata, who is going to also present today, especially in the GIS part and the study cases. And some of so the students in the room, also some of them are taking minor in GIS or certificate, so they have GIS skills as well. So they will be interested in your talk. And also the roles that Beniamino, Professor Murgante has. He's a director of Laboratory of Urban and Territorial Systems at the University of Basilicata. He's also a coordinator of undergraduate and postgraduate studies and coordinator of postgraduate program Smart Mobility and Urban Services in Smart Basilicata. Also publishes widely in highly cited journals, and is a co-chair of the International Conference on Computational Science. And besides all of these important roles he has, he's also my friend. So we have known each other since we were PhD students, and he is located in Italy. So we are calling to Europe today. And we have had many discussions over the years, meeting at different conferences, and we kept this professional friendship. I'm so grateful for Beniamino for that, and also grateful that you are taking time to talk in my class and share this very recent research that you are working on, and we are all very excited about that. So thank you so much. I'm going to leave the floor to you now, and we are recording the session so we can share it widely in our community.
Thank you, Alenka, for your kind invitation. I'm very honored for be here, but also I'm honored to be your friend because you are also an important scientist in this area. And I'm also happy because I had another seminar during the COVID 3 years ago in a very terrible situation. I remember that at 10 o'clock I had to escape because Italy was closed at 10 o'clock in the night, and now are 8:48 in Italy, and was a very terrible situation. I'm happy that we survived and
Yes.
are here, and we can also continue our research because we are very interesting. We love our job. Yeah. And I also introduced Alfonso Annunziata. Alfonso is a postdoc student in Italy, but also is habilitated as associate professor in Italy in spatial planning. And with him, I shared a lot of research in last years, several latest research very important in this field on configurational analysis related to 15-minute cities. Okay, I introduced the concept of 15-minute cities, and I will also, but as suggested Professor Alenka Poplin, we will go fast in our presentation, saving time for a deep discussion. We can continue together to discuss. Probably I send to Alenka the papers. Probably if you read the papers, you can have many something to ask, and in a detail we can go in a detailed way to answer. Okay, I have to share my screen. Okay, PowerPoint.
And I'm going to move so I can better see. I'm going to stop the video right here so we can have yours.
Okay. Okay. The concept we will discuss about the concept of 15-minute cities. This concept is closely related to many aspects central in the current debate, no? And for instance, if you consider climate changes, now this is a very funny draw. in the past, climate change is the real in the past, but not very far in the past. Someone also today continues to affirm, to say that climate change is just something invented by environmentalists, by Greta Thunberg and others. Okay, climate change is real. This is another opinion. Climate change is real. We are just not convinced it's caused by humans. That probably is a trend that we cannot do anything to do. The problem is that now we are transitioning from hopes to fact. This is the real situation now. And we are traveling in a truck without driver. And how did we find ourselves in this situation? That's what we have to ask in this situation. Now I want to be very fast. In past, managing the city was very easy because there is an abrupt transition between the countryside to the urban. Urban and not urban was very easy to distinguish. This is Carcassonne in France, is a village in France, or this is another situation in Italy, very easy to distinguish urban from non-urban. With the Industrial Revolution, the situation completely changed. You can see this the very particular situation of the heavy industry, very close to the neighborhoods, with the great problem on the health for people, for populations. And as an answer to this problem, started the idea of the Garden City. The Garden City, this is the manifesto of Garden City: living and working in smoke in the past, living in suburb, working in smoke, living and working in the sun, and well-being Garden City. Other idea was to consider to separate the heavy industry from the residential and from the neighborhood. This is the idea of Tony Garnier in the development in Lyon. Lyon is the place where I met Alenka for the first time 21 years ago. It was during the Agile conference. I was a postdoc at INSA with Robert Laurini in Lyon, and Orenza and Alenka came for Agile conference. And the other idea by Le Corbusier also to separate heavy industry with green areas just in the central part, and you can and in this part, residential areas, school, hotels, business districts, also with other green areas. This is another idea about Haussmann in Paris, the planner who realized the boulevard, the roundabout, the main roundabout, but also the system of parks that you can see here. A lot of green areas, several green areas, very big. And you can see this is the idea that they realized the Boulevard de l'Opéra, in this case, a great avenue, highlighting the monuments in Paris. And you can see on Google Map how the plan realized a lot of time, 1 century ago, more than 1 century ago. Completely realized. You can see the big green areas completely remain, and also the other green areas in the center part of Paris. You can see also the roundabout close to l'Arc de Triomphe, or other main boulevard de l'Opéra, with the l'Opéra in this the end of the street, this is the Arc de Triomphe, etc., etc., etc. This is an opposite way. This is the city of sprawl. This is the contemporary city with a lot of great problems, generate a lot of great problems in terms of environment, but also in terms of quality of life, because it oblige people to living in cars for 1 hour or more than 1 hour, in several cases also 2 hours, and we have to consider that we have just one life, no more. Okay, the main idea about the organization, about the climate changes, they are the main step. Rio Conference in 1992 predicted that, considering that the 20% of world population uses 80% of planet's resources, and with the economic growth of populated countries such as China, India, Russia, Brazil, planet resources are not enough. And the Earth Overshot Day now is in July. Remember that just during the COVID was again in August, but now is in July again. This means the Overshot Day, probably you know what is the day where we use all resources of the planet. Normally it could be in at the end of the 31 of December, but in this case we waste all resources in July. It's important to consider the Conference of Parties. A meeting organized by International Environment Agreement by the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Changes. The first was in 1995 in Berlin, organized by young Minister of Environment called Angela Merkel. In the future, she will she was the first minister in Germany for a lot of time. We have to remember the Kyoto Protocol in 1997, and it's important also to consider the Paris Agreement in 2015. The Paris Agreement is an international treaty aimed to addressing climate change by limiting global warming to more than 2 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels, with effort to limit 1.5 degree Celsius. The Treaty Paris established a problem and a goal without explicitly define how to solve it, because they said, okay, the problem is the global temperature, but they have not said what is the problem. There is not the problem, but not what generated the problem. This is because normally it's with a lot of countries, it was not easy to negotiate and to write the problem in a clear way, declare the problem with a clear way, who generated the problem. In December, it was the COP28 in Dubai. The COP28 in Dubai determined that to solve the global warming problem generated by fossil fuels, and we have to eliminate these fossil fuels. This is a clear statement. This is important. The goal was to define a phase out. Obviously, the negotiation was not in this direction, but the agreement was important because has been established the concept of transitioning away by fossil fuels. This is very, very important. We can see, for instance, this is the Hermitage Museum in St. Petersburg, or in my opinion, the best museum in the world. I had the possibility to visit him in 2019, very wonderful. And we can see the square outside the museum, just in the case with 3 degrees of global warming, the degree of increasing the temperature. Just with 1.5, we saved this square. This is Buckingham Palace in London today. We can see Buckingham Palace increasing 1.5 degree. This also with the Paris Agreement, we can have a problem of water in Buckingham Palace in this case. With the 3 degrees, we have the waters inside Buckingham Palace. In this case, half of the first floor has been completely full of water. This is the Venice, one of the wonderful places in the world. And in yellow, you can see what will remain with the 3 degrees of increase of temperature. With 1.5, the Venice Island will be completely saved, fortunately. The other problem, we have that 80% of emission has been produced in the cities. This is important to assume this. In 8 years from 2012 to 2020, the number of cars doubled. The total amount of cars doubled from 1 million to 2 billion. Each second, the urban population grows by 2 people, from people who move from countryside to the cities, or for other in other countries who increase the power for the newborn. This is very a problem. Commercial and residential building consume 30% of world energy. This means that the great problem of climate change are concentrated in cities. I would like to show a research developed with several colleagues. They are physicists. They work on remote sensing, analyzing temperature, remote sensing. We was in a European project together in the care, and they compared. In this case, the concentration of sulfur dioxide in 4 sites, 3 very polluted sites. The SATA means Fiat Chrysler Automotive in Italy. The other is the extraction of oil, and the other is an important steel industry in Italy, compared with the city of Naples, which invested a lot of resources in public transport, or in subways, etc., etc., etc. Considering this, more or less, the pollution could be comparable. But if we consider nitrogen dioxide in this case, the production of pollution and the concentration of nitrogen dioxide in urban areas are more and more of 3 very polluting sites. And we can see that the great pollution started with at the end of October, because they have to buy something for before. They started the sales before Christmas normally, and it finished with in the Christmas period. The peak is just for close to the end of the year, because they go to see Christmas markets, Christmas also organization, and etc., etc., etc. And just for explaining what the main problem is in the cities. Okay, contemporary cities giving centrality to cars. It started more or less 50 years ago. This is a typical stressing day for going to work. This is also interesting to see that you are not in the traffic, but you are in the traffic. That this means that if you use another means, probably the situation will be better. And also in terms of quality of urban space or life, because you have to consider that someone who lives very close to the bridge, probably his quality of life in terms of pollution, in terms of noise, is very terrible. And also, it could be interesting to remove this part in order to increase the quality of urban space. This is probably you remember that a bridge collapsed in Genoa 45 years ago, and the Ponte Morandi Bridge. But in this case, it's possible that several tracks practically are inside the flat, inside the home. And there is an intersection between the bridge and the building, in this case. Okay, we have to consider that if we remove car, we can save space for using the space for more interesting issues in space we can use for other activities in urban areas. This is an illustration, but Carl Ealing show how much public space has been surrounded by to the cars, and this is I show it very fast several examples how when removing cars in this case and the quality and this can be used for other kind of activity, also for interactive with other peoples. You can see removing car, you can say better environment, but also in this case for kids they can play. Also in this case they can have more shopping. Other case, other interesting green areas. Also in this case, removing the bridge, they can use public transport in this case. And also a very wonderful scale, very wonderful square obtained removing this car. This is Naples, Piazza Plebiscito, and it was not easy to remove all these cars, but in this case, there is a wonderful atmosphere in Piazza Plebiscito. There are also other interesting experiences removing this street, this agway. This has been used for people for stay to get to the sun, take the rest, and etc. 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 Another interesting activity, removing all this bridge and organize better the space, the urban space. And this is another in past. This is okay. This is a interesting statement because every city make mistakes, but great city fix them. 50 years ago, Utrecht conducted an agway here, but they removed this agway and restoring water, river, green areas, and a very nice public space. We have to consider also the transition from 275 current year, the current era working city. This is Rome. This more or less 1,000 years later, Paris, more smaller than Rome in this case. We are also continue to consider the working city, but please pay attention to the dimension in this case. How increase the dimension? With the Industrial Revolution, we have to consider the rail city. This is London, and we can consider also how increase the dimension of urban areas with the increase of means of transport. Now we can consider the streetcar cities, and we consider Chicago at the beginning of the previous century, and it increased a lot to comparing it with Paris in this case. But if you consider Greater Atlanta, the car cities in this century, more or less 14 years ago, it increased more and more. And this means that this is the sprawl city, and this means that people are obliged to live a great part of their life in the car. This is, you can find on this link on The Guardian described that the urbanization is completely out of control, and the pollution can be seen with the eyes without analyze the air with chemistry and biologists, but it's easy to understand that we have the pollution just looking in this case. Okay, now I introduce the concept of 15-minute city. He is Carlos Moreno, and he used this statement. Okay, we push the load of people out of the suburb when the property prices are lower. And we told them, take the train, you can spend our commuting to work, and you can be grateful to have a job because the world belongs to those who get up early. With 15-minute city, we no longer want to accept this situation. This is the main concept of 15-minute city. Cities should follow the rhythm of people or not car. Every square meter should serve for multiple uses. Urban quarters should be designed in a way that people do not need to commute. A massive spatial decentralization, a transformation of existing infrastructure, development of new services for each neighborhood, the transformation of street into big bike lane and pedestrian areas, new economic models that attract local business. This is the main pillars of 15 minute city. We have to consider density, proximity, digitalization, and diversity. And now I will show in detail these 4 points. Okay, we have to consider density. This means that we have to avoid the sprawl city. Normally, density has been considered as not a good factor, but we have to distinguish density to overcrowding, because a lot of people can live just also in a countryside, not in a comfortable way, but you can live in a building, in this case, and you have the space for having a good life, no? Also for have a comfort in home without living in a countryside. This means that you can live in a building also with 10 floors or more than 10 floors and be live a comfortable life. The other concept is the proximity, and there are these 2 important papers about the walkable city and the proximity environment. And it's important to consider the concept of bringing activity to the neighborhood rather than people to activity, because otherwise the people have to move to the peripheral areas to reach the shopping malls to buy something. But also there is a problem, because a lot of shopping malls are closing due to the e-commerce, and in this case probably the local shops probably at the neighborhood scale can survive, probably because the people can go to buy something by walk. In this case probably it will be surely better. There is an experience, or the other important it's important to have a diversity in order to have a mix in functionality, but also in people who live in several parts of the neighborhood. Social mixing and functional mixing is important. The other important is digitalization. This means that smart working in several cases several activities can be useful. This means that you can remain to work at home in co-working space. This means that there is a close connection between urban services and urban data in this case. There is an experience of the 15 minute city developed by the mayor of Paris, Anne Hidalgo, and she tried to concentrate in 15 minutes walking, all services, also in terms of health, the public services, and also shops and other also private services. The other idea is to invert the pyramid in order to have more sustainable transport and less private transport by cars. This is another experience of 10 minutes on foot. Also Barcelona, famous for the plan of Alfonso with the diagonal and also the octagon of this building. This is also the octagon. If you go to Barcelona in Park Güell, from the app you can see the Barcelona. This is the plan of Alfonso Cerdà. This is the central part of Barcelona. This is the Ramblas, Barrio Gótico here, and the Plaza de Catalunya, and this is the Alfonso Cerdà plan development. And in this case, they decided to realize the super block, where in this super block it's possible just to move by foot, deleting all possible to access with cars, and
this is important. With the COVID, 15-minute city became more popular because 15-minute city can help to the post-pandemic recovery, because a lot of people about to prefer to pedestrian or bike to go to work. In this case, 15-minute city can go in this direction. This is another statement. In Europe, European city more space for bike with after coronavirus. This is another interesting research led by Beniamino, a colleague from a Norwegian university. They analyzed, this group analyzed in Oslo and Lisbon, the accessibility from to co-working space from subway, and working distance with from 10 to 15 minutes. And also they analyzed the distribution of point of interest in, for instance, food and beverage services, because you can stay in co-working space, but also interesting to have a possibility to have the lunch, to go to buy something, also to go to museum, to the cinema. This is important. They analyze the distribution. Now we can go to the case studies. I just make an introduction. We will have 3 experiences. The first is considered 2 cases, Terni and Matera. The other, I sent you the papers, published, one on applied geography, this case, and the other in cities, in another journal. And the other has been considered 4 Italian cities, bigger than Terni and Matera. Is the metropolitan areas. We consider Cagliari in Sardinia, Pisa, famous for the Leaning Tower in Tuscany, Trieste in the edge of Italy, in Friuli Venezia Giulia, and Perugia is the main town in Umbria region in central Italy. And the other experience, we analyzed the services, etc., in Potenza. Potenza is the main city of Basilicata region, where I am doing my presentation here. I'm at the university, and Alfonso, we worked on these experiences. And this research has been developed also with Lucia Patimisco and Raffaella Velluzzi. And so there was a thesis, undergraduate thesis. We are very happy that both of them reached very good results. Okay, Terni and Matera are famous for 2 important master plans, very famous in Italy. One developed by Mario Ridolfi in Terni, and the other developed by Piccinato in Matera, are 2 important cases, because Terni is a very industrial city with one of the main steel industry in Italy, and destroyed after the Second World War, because in this steel industry they produced guns. And also in this industry has been realized the gun that killed John Kennedy by Oswald. And Piccinato was another situation, because Matera is a wonderful place with the rock caves, and it was in the national debate because people lived in rock caves during the fascism period, and important development for these cities in order to create new neighborhoods. This means that important also urban design activities started in this area. Okay, these are two papers that I send you, published, and also if you read this paper, you can have many questions later. Now I give, this is the example of the urban design experiences with the important neighborhoods realized in Matera and Terni. It is also important to analyze how good experience of planning can produce also 60 years later good results in terms of 15 million cities. Now I give the floor to Alfonso for explain the case study, and later I'll explain something just for closing this lecture.
Okay, so thank you very much for the invitation, and I'm going to show you the results of our analysis, and I'm going to share my presentation. Can you see it?
Yes.
Okay. So the analysis conducted is focused on the analysis of the level of compliance of existing urban areas to the criteria of the 15-minute city model. In particular, the concept of proximity and the levels of compliance of existing urban areas to the concept of proximity was analyzed. The concept of proximity, as Professor Murgante said before, is a central concept of the 15-minute city concept, and it implies a relocation of basic services aimed at improving conditions of access to basic services, and as a consequence to improve also the levels of people's participation to urban life. As such, proximity can result in several benefits related to the regeneration of urban spaces and their transformation in inclusive public spaces, in spaces for social encounter, for social interaction. But proximity can also result in promoting active mobility, reducing car dependency, so increasing also and improving the environmental resilience of urban areas. The aim of this analysis was to evaluate through spatial metrics the levels of access to services of general interest, and also to identify the built environment factors that are related to the variation, to the spatial variation of levels of access to basic services, also in order to identify which aspects, which components of the urban environment can be addressed by urban regeneration strategies aimed at fostering, at promoting the relocation of services and the transformation of existing urban areas in 15-minute cities. So the methodological framework of this analysis focused on the cities of Terni and Matera was articulated on 6 stages, and in particular, 2 main dimensions of this analysis can be identified. The first one is focused on the computation of a synthetic index of access to services, which is calculated as the weighted average of attraction reach metrics calculated for distinct categories of services. The attraction reach metric is an indicator calculated via the place syntax toolkit, which for each location, namely for each urban block, calculates a value which is a function of the number of destinations, of points of interest related to a specific category of services, and also is a function of the distance of each location, of each destination, of each service from the considered location, from the considered urban block. and several configurational and spatial indicators related to specific properties of the built environment, namely angular integration as a measure of the centrality of street segments, compactness and permeability of the urban structure were computed and compared to the levels of access to services in order to identify correlations between levels of access to services and specific properties of the built environment. As you can see, these maps show you the spatial variations of levels of access to services. So they show you the variation of the synthetic index that account for both the proximity and the diversity of urban services. And for both the urban areas, we can see a common pattern emerging. That is a sort of centripetal configuration resulting from the concentration of services in central compact districts, leading to optimal levels of access in central areas and to decreasing levels of access to services in peri-urban and suburban areas. As such, we can see that there is a sort of spatial variations in the levels of compliance, of realization of the 15-minute city concept. That is, we can see that compact city districts are already 15-minute city neighborhoods, 15-minute districts, while suburban areas are car-dominated monofunctional areas with that present modest, reduced levels of access to services. If we compare these properties of access to services with specific metrics of built environment factor, we can see, for instance, that central districts are also more permeable, also more interconnected. Here we can see the variation of the density of road intersections. So we can see that in central areas, the urban structure is much more permeable than in outer areas where the structure is coarser. Also, we can see that the centrality, the integration, which is a measure of the accessibility of urban spaces, is much higher in central areas. So urban spaces in central districts tend to be more integrated, more accessible, both at the micro scale and at the meso scale, while urban spaces in suburban areas tend to be more segregated. Also, we can see it also for angular integration at radius 2000 meters, so at the neighborhood scale. We can see that a strong correlation can be identified between factors of urban form, factors related to the configuration of the built environment and levels of access to services. In particular, we can see that the density of road intersection is strongly related to the levels of access to services, and also that integration at the local scale is strongly related to access to services. A similar analysis has been conducted on other 4 Italian cities, namely Cagliari, Perugia, Pisa, and Trieste, and similar findings are result from these studies. In particular, as we can see from this picture, in all the 4 cities, a similar centripetal configuration can be identified with higher levels of access to services in central areas and with decreasing levels of access to services in suburban areas. And as in the case of Terni and Matera, we can also observe a strong correlation between the permeability of the urban structure, that is the density of road intersections, and the levels of access to basic services. Similar consideration can result also from the analysis of configurational properties, namely angular integration. And also in this case, we can observe a significant correlation among integration of urban spaces, centrality of urban spaces, and levels of access to services. In particular, a focus on the city of Perugia can depict this situation in a more detailed way, in particular by highlighting the gradient, the spatial variation of levels of access to services and of integration. And as a result, we can observe this relation, this significant relation between configurational properties and levels of distribution of services. Again, we can observe this pattern also considering an indicator that consider both the integration at the district scale and the compactness of the urban environment. And again, we can observe that when accounting also for the compactness of the urban environment, the correlation between the configuration of the urban structure and the levels of provision of basic services increases, result more and more significant. Again, we can observe the strong correlation between the permeability measured in terms of density of road intersections and the levels of access to basic services. Going forward, I want to present also the results of another study that we have conducted on the city of Potenza, where we have considered another important factor, which is the spatial variation of emotional responses of individuals to the built environment. The aspect of the emotional response of pedestrians to the urban space, to the built environment, is relevant because the emotional aspect is a mediating factor in promoting and in increasing the propensity of people to walk. So as a result, understanding the factors of the built environment related both to the configuration of the urban structure and also to the spatial distribution of services and the emotional responses of people, the perception of the built environment by people can be and actually is a relevant aspect for policies aimed at promoting active mobility and as a result at reducing car dependency in the context of the adaptation of the urban environment to the scenario of the environmental crisis. So this analysis conducted on the city of Potenza is articulated on 6 steps. The selection and description of the area of interest, the evaluation of levels of access to 5 categories of urban amenities, namely recreational services, general services, sustainable services, retail activities, and urban green areas. The evaluation of urban form factor, including compactness, permeability, and streets integration, is the 3rd step of this analysis. Then the elaboration of a map-based survey aimed at mapping the basic emotions related to the perception and to the experience of urban spaces represent the stages 4 and 5 of this analysis, while the last stage of the analysis is focused on the comparison of the frequency of positive and negative emotions and the macro scale built environment properties. So the results of the analysis show the spatial variation of the emotional response of individuals to the built environment. In particular, the analysis is focused on these two districts of the city of Potenza, and the results of the map-based survey indicate a concentration of positive basic emotions, namely contentment, comfort, and safety in the central part, in the central spaces in the core of this district, while the negative emotions, namely fear, anger, disgust, and boredom, are mainly concentrated in the along the edges, in the marginal spaces of the considered areas of interest. In particular, we can see that positive emotional response are located in the historic center of Potenza, particularly around these main spaces, namely Mario Pagano Square and the Via Pretoria Street, which is the main street of this district, while we can see in in the other district, the Poggio Tre Galli district, which is a modern residential neighborhood, we can see that positive emotions are located along the main axis, the longitudinal axis that organize the spatial structure of this district. On the other side, on the other hand, we can see that negative emotions are distributed along the edges of the Poggio Tre Galli district and are concentrated in marginal and segregated spaces in the historic center of the city of Potenza. On the other hand, we have evaluated and we have analyzed several configurational properties of the urban spaces in these two districts. In particular, we can see here the spatial variations, the spatial variation of conditions of visual integration across the spaces, and we can see that a core of integrated spaces in terms of intervisibility relations in the two districts. And we can observe also a distinct pattern related to the variation of conditions of spatial integration, of angular integration of street segments in the city of Potenza. In particular, we can see that urban spaces in the historic center of Potenza are more integrated at the local scale, while integration at the local scale is higher in this central part, in this central core of the Poggio Tre Galli district. And we can see a similar pattern when levels of integration are weighted by considering also compositional aspects of urban spaces. In this case, slope was the other variable considered. And we can also see from a methodological point of view how the computation of levels of access of services, of levels of access to services can vary if we modify or if we consider the relative importance of local destination. In particular, in this case, we were analyzing the conditions of access to recreational activities, to recreational services, and we can see how the pattern of access to this category of services vary if we give equal importance to all the destinations, or otherwise if we consider as a variable also the quality of services calculated in terms of number of reviews and average rating of each local destination. In particular, we can see that in this case, this core, this central part of this district emerge as a significant area in terms of provision of recreational services if we account also for the quality, for the importance, for the relevance of these services in terms of number of reviews and average ratings by the users. In general terms, we can see that by analyzing and by calculating a synthetic index of access to services, we can see that the historic district of the city of Potenza presents optimal levels of access to recreational, cultural, general services, while the Poggio Tregalli district presents higher spatial variations of levels of access to services. In particular, the central core, the central area of the district present optimal levels of access to services, while the edge, the marginal areas of the district present modest, limited levels of access to services. In the last stage, we have compared the frequency of positive and negative emotional responses to the values of the indicators measuring the configurational properties of the built environment. In particular, we can see in this picture highlighted the spaces that present a higher concentration, higher frequency of positive emotions. And we can see that these spaces are characterized by specific macro scale properties. In particular, these spaces present a more compact and a more integrated urban structure. In particular, we can see that the values of density of road intersection, of compactness measured in terms of floor area ratio and the ground surface index are also higher in spaces presenting an higher concentration of positive emotional responses. We can also see that these spaces are more integrated in terms of visibility relations and also in terms of accessibility of spatial integration of urban spaces, in particular at the local scale. And we can also see that these spaces related to positive emotional responses also present higher values of access to general services, retail activities, sustainable services, and recreational services, while no significant results can be observed for levels of access to urban green areas. And also, interestingly, these spaces are not close, so are distant from non-built areas. On the other hand, spaces present negative emotional responses or null emotional responses present a coarser, less compact, less integrated spatial structure, and also present lower levels of access to basic services. As a consequence, as a result, these studies provide useful, valuable insights on the spatial inequalities that can be observed in existing urban areas, namely the disparities in terms of access to basic services, resulting in a condition of spatial injustice, which implies that specific central compact districts are already can be already considered as 15-minute districts, and as a consequence present higher levels of access to basic services, and as a consequence they also afford for higher levels of participation to urban life, while peripheral areas present lower levels of access to services, and as a consequence can also produce phenomena of social segregation. At the same time, this analysis highlights that several built environment factors are significantly correlated to this condition of spatial injustice. And these findings can also point out that several built environment factors could represent a relevant and important aspect to address, to modify in the context of urban regeneration strategies aimed at creating the conditions conducive to the relocation of services and to the realization of the principles of proximity and diversity of services, which are a central component for the realization of the 15-minute city concept and for the generation of the social, environmental, and economic benefits which are related to these concepts, namely the increased conditions of access to services, the increased conditions of social inclusion, the reduction of car dependency, and as a consequence, the increase in the of the ecological resilience and sustainability of the urban environment. And that's all. So I'm done. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much. Is it time for questions, or did you have like conclusions that you wanted to share? I'm not sure. You mentioned, Beniamino, something about
conclusion.
sharing.
Sorry, conclusion.
Okay.
Just a few slides for concluding. I switched off the microphone in order to avoid noises. I would like to explain just that 50-minute city are no more than good fundamentals of planning, a good approach. This old map is in Lucca. Lucca is a wonderful town in Italy, and this is the Cardo and the Cumano, the basis of Roman cities, and it divide these two streets divide the cities in 4 parties, and all parties must have all services. This is the fundamental of the town. This is a new map of Lucca, and this is important because this approach can change completely, because we have the earth capacity, carrying capacity with sustainable scenarios that we are highlighted by me and Alfonso, can be flattening the curve and can be more sustainable. And because we have the problem of climate changes, and we have a COVID, recession, climate change, biodiversity collapse, this is a great approach, in my opinion, with using a lot of bicycle. This is just for laughing. I will leave over the slide. You can see this, and you can laugh if you want. This is an active experience where the traffic are completely stopped in four. You can cross the street as you want. This is in Banff in Canada. And this is another experience of sustainable mobility for people on a motorbike. And this is an example of 15-minute cities, because we have a lot in Naples. It's a very small street where you can have shops. The people exchange everything between the two buildings, and you can have from a social point of view for shops. Is very interesting. This is just for laugh, the example of 15-minute cities. Okay, that's all. And thank you for your attention. We are available for answering to your questions.
Oh, that's fantastic. Thank you so much. So I suggest that we open the floor for questions, and maybe guys, you can come over here. Obviously, we use this high tech here that did not work, but I'm sure we have about 10 minutes, and I'm sure this amazing talk, both of you sharing your research. I'm sure we have lots of questions that we want to ask. It definitely touches so much on what we are discussing here, walkability, GIS analysis, emotions, cities. So do you, I will, yes. So you wanna, who wants to start? Havasu? Yeah, come. Or just have everybody come here to talk to you.
Oh, it was very nice to meet you. It was a really good presentation. Especially, I really enjoyed the part where you shared about the positive emotional response, and it connected with the ultimate objective that you wanted to achieve with the 15-minute city. I just, in the last slide, you presented one thing called global configuration and how it influences the disparities in terms of access to services. So I just wanted to understand, like, I could relate to other outcomes that you have discussed there, but could not really relate to global configuration, how it influences the disparities. Can you explain a little bit more of that?
Yes, thank you for your question. And first of all, I share the presentation. Okay, so if we focus, for instance, on the city of Potenza, first of all, we have focused on angular integration, which calculates the distance of each location, each street segment from any other segment. And we have calculated this metric both at the local scale, considering a radius of 800 meters, at the mesoscale and at the urban scale. And we have observed that angular integration is strongly and significantly related to levels of access of services, because we think that also, as demonstrated by the studies conducted by Bill Hillier within the framework of the space syntax theory, the integration of spaces, particularly the local integration of spaces, is related, is a condition that can influence, can impact the distribution of pedestrian movement. That is that the most integrated spaces are also the spaces that are more accessible by pedestrians, by foot. As a result, the most integrated spaces are also the spaces where people tend to gather, where co-presence of people tends to be higher. And as a result, this concentration of natural movement, of pedestrian movement, can be a condition conducive, a condition favorable to the location of economic activities and of services. As such, we can identify a sort of interdependence between the concentration of pedestrian movement, which is enabled, which is facilitated by the configuration of the urban structure, and particularly by the integration of street segments, and the patterns of distribution of location of services. As a consequence, the findings from our studies tend to confirm this theory, the natural movement theory, by highlighting the correlation, as I said before, between levels of integration and levels of availability of local destinations of services. And on the other hand, also the density of road intersection has emerged as a relevant factor, or as a factor of the built environment related to access to services, because the density of road intersection, that is the permeability of the urban structure, implies also the higher availability from the pedestrian point of view of more alternative routes, and also this condition in a certain way increases the possibility of moving around for the pedestrian, and as a consequence also can increase their chances to access more services, more destinations. And
you have more questions? Ah, you wanted to say it to finish, sorry.
No.
Yeah. Okay. Anybody else has a question? I have a question regarding the emotions.
yes.
In fact, two questions. We only have 2 minutes, so it maybe could be quick. But one was, I believe you mentioned comfort and safety for positive emotions, and fear, anger, disgust, and boredom for the negative. I wonder if these were all the emotions you took into consideration, or and how did you collect the data? Did you ask people, tell me how do you feel safe, or tell me, or select emotion from the list? This is number one. And number two, I was wondering why negative emotions were in the center of the city Potenza, where basically is the historical center. One would think that there would be also, there were positive emotions, but they were also negative in one particular part of the city. So if you could answer in 2 minutes, that would be great.
Yes. So to answer to the first question, we used the Maptioner tool to develop a map-based survey on the emotional response of people to urban spaces. In particular, we have shared this survey with distinct categories of urban users, urban residents, and we have asked them to show on a map. As you can see, I'm going to show you. We have asked them to indicate on a map available in the Maptioner platform to indicate places, spaces which were related to 6 basic emotions. 3 positive emotions: contentment, comfort, and safety, and 3 negative emotions, which are boredom, disgust, and fear. In particular, here you can see, for instance, the spatial distribution of answers related to places which are perceived as positive places, as places eliciting feelings of contentment. And you can see in Poggio Tregali district that positive responses are located along the central axis and along this street, while they are distributed in the historic center of Potenza. So we have used these web-based and map-based survey to collect data related to the emotional responses of people to urban spaces. The distribution of negative responses in the city center of Potenza is mainly related to 2 factors. The first one is that feelings, emotions of fear are mostly concentrated in along the edges of the district and along spaces which are more segregated and less, if I may say so, less used by people. They tend to be quite less vital and vibrant places. And we have also observed that a concentration of negative emotional responses is related to this particular place of the city of Potenza, the Holy Trinity Church, which is, we suppose, this concentration of negative responses is related to a crime which was perpetrated 30 years ago in these places, and that has strongly influenced the society, the local social structure.
Okay, I see. Thank you so much. We are on a tight schedule, so we have to really finish, even though we could discuss for another hour. This was really amazing. I will additionally share your slides with students and the papers, and it was so great to hear about your recent research. But I need to conclude, and thank you so much. And I know it's very late for you. You're gonna go to bed, I guess. It's 10 p.m. I think. So buonanotte, gracias.
Thank you.
Grazie,
Alenka.
actually, grazie per lei.
Alenka, I'm honored to be here, and I left also my emails for your student. If they want to, they can write me to Alfonso. They can answer also in future. Also in
excellent. Yeah. Thank you so much for joining from
Thank
Italy.
you for the invitation.
Thank you. Ciao. Bye-bye.
Have a nice day.
Bye-bye.
Everybody's happy.
Alenka, obviously we can cooperate for replying the experience in USA. I also organize the group. If you, we can have a meeting and we can also discuss for.
Yes, let's have another meeting because I also am running to the other side of the campus. But let's have another meeting to discuss. That would be great.
Okay, we organize.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.